Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Wild Yoga Tribe podcast. I'm your host, Lily Allen Duenas. Together, we'll talk about the world of yoga and we'll talk to people from around the world. Join us for authentic conversations about the global yoga ecosystem, and we'll cover yoga philosophies and methodologies along the way. Inhale, exhale. We're about to dive in. Namaste, family. Welcome back to the Wild Yoga Tribe. Today, I am so excited. We are doing something extra special. Today, I have two guests on the show together, Pazit and Kobi. They are husband and wife, and they are the founders of Vagabond Temple in Cambodia. They're also from Israel, and I'm just so excited to have them on the show today. While I never visited Vagabond Temple myself when I was in Cambodia, I didn't have the opportunity because I was teaching on a small island a little farther away, but I'm just thrilled. I know a good friend of mine who went and spent time with them and can't speak highly enough about Pazit and Kobi. So they're yoga and meditation teachers from intern yoga school in Cambodia called Vagabond Temple, and they've had that for about 8 years, and they had this intention to create a space and a place where people could connect with the divinity inside of themselves. Pazit and Kobi teach Iyengar yoga, Kundalini yoga, meditation, and healing, and they've studied extensively with renowned teachers like the Taoist master Mantak Chia and Krishnat Iyengar and more. So let's dive in. Let's hear their stories. I'm so excited. Thank you so much, Pazit and Kobi, for being on the show today.
Thank you, Lily.
So why don't you introduce yourselves so everyone can get a better feel for who you are and your stories?
So hello everyone, I'm Kobi.
Yes, and I'm Pazit. And like Lily said, we are a couple from Israel, and we actually decided over 10 years ago to leave our jobs and our work and our families and go on kind of like a long trip, a long journey to connect with ourselves and to learn all kinds of ancient traditions, yoga and meditation, Buddhism as well. Yeah, as we studied ourselves, we also started to share what we learned with other people, and this is how we established the Vagabond Temple. And since then, we have been teaching both here in Cambodia and both online, especially now. And we just love it. Yeah, it's become a complete lifestyle for us. We're living it and we're breathing it and we're teaching it. And yeah, our life is surrounded with spirituality.
When we met each other after being in a trip in India separately. Each one of us was separately in India, and then when we came back to Israel, we met each other, and we just couldn't stop speaking about India and about the experience that we had there. And both of us had this understanding that life doesn't have to be like that. It doesn't have to be like restricted and without the feeling of connection to something bigger and higher, and to each other as well. And throughout all of our relationships since the beginning, we're speaking about going back to India and living in a life in a way that we want to live it. And now we're doing it. So it's really a dream coming true, and it's great and amazing journey that we are experiencing.
So happy to hear that. I agree. Life doesn't have to be like that. It's awesome that you connected over that sentiment and then built your lives the way you have. Or what made you choose that for your location?
Yeah, so as Kobe said, when we left Israel, we really thought we are going to be in India, because for us, India was kind of like the country of spirituality. But then actually life took us into, with their stream, with the things that happening. And we reached Cambodia, and we just fell in love in Cambodia with the people, with the quiet, with the view. And Kep is just the perfect place because it's such a small and quiet and peaceful beach town. that it's just perfect for a retreat. It's just perfect to connect to nature. Here there is the Kep National Park, which is just amazing just to walk there. There is the beach, so you are in nature. And it's very peaceful here. Not a lot of people. It's not a very high tourist place, so it's very quiet and relaxed in that matter.
I've just visited Kep for I think a day or two very quickly, and it was beautiful. Just tropical, great nature, the calm, the beaches. I think it has a lot of everything.
Yeah, so it has the blue of the sea and the green of the mountains and beautiful sunset and just very, very relaxed people as well. It's not just the atmosphere, it's the people themselves are very relaxed here. Everything is very chilled, laid back, a very different rhythm, yeah, to life.
Absolutely. So I'd love to dive in a little deeper, get into like the juicier elements that I'm so excited to talk to you both about. I would love, since we talked or I mentioned that you opened Vagabond Temple to help people connect with their inner divinity. I'd love to hear a little bit about what do you think are the most vital elements that a person needs to see or feel or experience to connect with the divinity within themselves.
Well, this is really interesting. Right? If we go right away to yoga, and we see it's like the way that we understand yoga is very much interlinked with Buddhism, and it's also very true historically because yoga and Buddhism were kind of sisters. They were taking from each other and always in a dialogue within each other. And we have these three layers that we see in of yoga of Patanjali and also in the Buddhist teachings and other spiritual methods as well. These layers of body, speech, and mind. So, body as the physical understanding of life, the physical world, the matter, speech, which also represent breath and energy, basically, and mind, which represent the whole thinking world and some of the emotions that we have.
The way we see it is more holistic. That we need to take care of kind of like ourselves as a whole, and like Kobi say, bringing ourselves, the different aspects of ourselves into alignment, and to get a lot of kind of focus and direction, both with our body, both with our mind, both with our energy. With all of them together, working together as one, allowing us to really connect ourselves to who we are rather than what happens to us usually is that we have different forces inside of us that takes us into different direction and not operating in balance with each other. When you bring these three aspects, body, mind, and speech, into alignment, you really have the opportunity to experience harmony, balance, peace, and with that you can just manifest yourself or express yourself in the world in a much better way as well. So you both develop yourself spiritually, but also on the practical level, on the earthly, physical, everyday life matter. You can operate from a much more peaceful and calm and clear place within yourself.
When there is not alignment, there is no alignment between these three forces. Like what happens is that there is the Atman, or like the higher self, as the yogis call it, or the Buddha nature, as the Buddhists call it, is like covered. And what we do in this journey of yoga is to discover, like taking these words apart, like discover, like this, and then to cover. And when we discover, when we take the cover away, we can reveal our Buddha nature, our higher self. And this is very much difficult these days. I think even more than the ancient times in some regards, because we have such such a busy life and atmosphere that we have is not necessarily helping us to be relaxed and peaceful and to reveal these aspects in ourselves. And there is not so much encouragement. And there is also a very, very difficult, I think it's really important to mention that it's difficult to have your life together, like to to operate in this world. It's rough. It's not that easy. Modern life is a very difficult task. We have so many things to juggle. And when we have that and we don't take care of ourselves, we don't take care of our body, we don't take care of our energy, and definitely not taking care of our mind, we can be in a state of being covered in opposed to being discovered.
No, that's absolutely beautiful. And I couldn't agree more. It is difficult to operate in this world. It's rough, as you said. I think that there's so much internal conflict and external conflict because of the pace at which we live, or the competition, or the conveniency. There's so many elements that I think kind of create a perfect storm in our modern world for this chaos inside.
So it's like this chaos that is outside and it's like also definitely internally as well is something that we have to face with. And this is what the yogis and the Buddhists call samsara. It's the life. And there is always an example that I give. It's not my example, obviously. It's the Vyasa example. Vyasa is one of the commentators of the Yoga Sutra. And he says it's a samsara life, as we know them, is like a dog that vomits and eats his own vomit. And if it's too rough of an example, you can take it out in the editing. But I think it's just like brilliant because there is something so repetitive about this life, about like doing the same thing over and over again, making the same mistakes, having the same issues, having the same samskaras, which are the imprinted memories that we have each and every one of us, and also the collective ones that makes life very, very difficult. So then, like, we need an extreme solution, an extreme measures in order to get out of this samsara, get out, like, to also cope with the external chaos and definitely work on the internal world. And then we can change the game. We can kind of get into a new space where life is much more bearable, a bit more space to enjoy and to see, to being grateful for what we have and taking advantage of this life. And right away, it's really important to say as well that to fulfill ourselves in this life, and it's very, very clear from the yogic teaching that to fulfill ourselves in this life is to be kind of a vessel, to be able not only to live a healthy and happy life for ourselves, but to be someone, to be a being of light and to radiate light to others, to help others, to be there for others and not just selfishly living life.
That definitely resonates with me as well. And that example was not too rough. I think it is an amazing example of that repetitive nature of just we're doing things always that isn't healthy for us, or isn't, we can make toxic choices every day, and that can be that cyclical pattern that we have fallen into. And I did mention, or we're almost touching modern yoga. So I would love to pose the question to you too. What is the role of modern yoga in the world today?
I think today, because we have so many challenges, and because also there is a lot of expectations and a lot of kind of, we need to be like a lot of like multitasking and very talented, and there's a lot of demands on ourselves on the everyday life, that yoga becomes a big tool of reconnecting ourselves into something deeper than that and more authentic, and allows us, like Kobi said, to turn a little bit our perception from the samsara into gratefulness. And I think really this is maybe one of the biggest role in modern life. And also another big role is to allow us to have the space inside for compassion, because, beyond the obvious thing that yoga helps us to face the challenges and it makes us strong, not just physically, but also it helps us to be emotionally stronger and with our mind to be stronger and to have a stronger vessel for expression in the world and to face the challenges and to face all the tasks that we need. I think much more than that, the role of spirituality and yoga and so on is to remember that in the end, and this is what we believe, like our purpose here in this world is to do good, is to do good for ourselves, is to do good for others, is to do good for the environment, is to be a good person and to be a person with gratefulness and compassion. And I think this is the role of yoga in modern life, much more than anything else.
We can always think about a spiritual practice in a materialistic terms, and this is like a term that Chongyam Trungpa, a Tibetan teacher, was coining, and it's spiritual materialism, where we take the spiritual teachings and make out of them something very materialistic. And we see that all over today in all the different spiritual teachings. And the point that Pazit was making, I think, we cannot stress it enough, how important it is to do the practice not for yourself alone. And it's like we don't think that this is the idea of yoga. And it's like thinking about the idea of yoga is like to making our body fit is completely going against the original teachings. We do yoga in order to be more compassionate. We do yoga to be more to help others. We don't do yoga just to be beautiful on the beach or something like that. And this is the most important part, I think, that is the role of yoga, like Pazit said, is like to make us people that can give in this world, can make an impact in this world, and to be someone who influence reality, to create reality, and to bring kindness and love, which is the first teachings in the Ashtanga Yoga, the 8 limbs of yoga, is non-harming. And basically non-harming is being compassionate. It's being actively, it's like sometimes can be mistaken to be a passive role, being non-violent, not being violent. But actually Gandhi was also teaching that in a very beautiful way, that it's not a passive role, it's an active role. It's someone who is actually doing good in this world.
Amazing, amazing. I love how you guys both mentioned the role of yoga in the world. And I was hoping if you could, define yoga for our listeners.
It's like for me at least, I don't have a personal one because there is someone who wrote so beautifully, and it's a Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha, which is the second verse in the Yoga Sutra, and it will take a couple of moments to explain. I hope that you will bear with me. We have like yoga is. As many of us already know, yoga is to unite, is to bring together, is coming from the word union. And chitta is consciousness, is the awareness, like the field of experiences that we are aware of. Vritti is the movement within this consciousness. So there is a distinction between chitta and vritti. Chitta is consciousness, but vritti is the movement within the consciousness. So if we have a thought, this is not the consciousness itself, it's just happening within consciousness. If we have an experience in life, this is something that happens within the consciousness, but it's not the consciousness itself. And Nirodha is to stop, but also in many other ways, or to restrict, but in many other ways, there is a beautiful teachings about Nirodha in the Pali Canon, actually. It says that Nirodha is like a rice field. Basically, it's holding everything together. It's like the padding of the rice field. the walls of the rice field are holding the water inside. It's like you see that the rice can really grow within this water, but it will not be flooded. It will not be too much. It will be exactly enough. So basically, if we take all of this together, yoga to unite, chitta is the consciousness, vritti is the a movement within the consciousness, the different experiences that we have, the movement that we have there will be contained in the stillness of consciousness, and this is yoga. When we have the experiences of life are actually contained with our consciousness, then we have yoga. So if we have an experience and we start like becoming really, we identify completely with this experience, we actually identify with the movement. So if, let's say, let's bring it down to earth a bit, if I think I don't love myself or I'm not good enough or something like that, then I actually contract myself to be identified completely with this thought, with this movement. But then I forget the chitta, I forget the consciousness, which is like the bigger aspect of who I am. It's like the infinity. And many times the yogis give examples of waves in the ocean. So you have the whole ocean, which is the chitta. You have the wave, which is a movement within the consciousness, which is a thought. So if I have a thought, I love myself, or I don't love myself, or whatever, it's just a wave within this ocean. In yoga, is basically to go back to this ocean and to contain all the thoughts and all the movement within this ocean. And this is Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha.
Beautiful. How about you, Pazit? Do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I agree with Kobi very much. I think, if we take the word union, just, on the very kind of like maybe practical level, if we take the word union and we go back to what we, started with, union has so many levels of meaning. It can be union within myself, body, mind, speech that we talked before, about this alignment within ourselves is the union between me and somebody else, which again leads us into this theme of the compassion is union between me and my environment. So there's a lot of levels of union that we can work on. And of course, that for us as people, we start first of all with ourselves, and then we go out there and to create that union with other people or the environment and so on. But I feel that those who practice yoga really seriously and really go on this path and practice, with intention and not just doing the movements, they really start to feel this union, even if they don't reach this, this very inspiring and desirable place of enlightenment, whatever that means. We already experiencing, or we have the opportunity to practice union, and through the practice of yoga. And I don't know if you already noticed, but we are very big on personal practice, and we really think that one of the ways to benefit from the spiritual path, any spiritual path, yoga, Buddhism, meditation, whatever the practice is or the tradition is to take it and practice it on an everyday, kind of everyday by yourself, and go deeper into that union. Yeah, go deeper into the real meaning of yoga, into this connection.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I think personal practice is so valuable and vital for our own journeys, because so much of my practice has to do with self-understanding, self-awareness, recognizing the mental habits and formations and everything that is arising in me. And if I'm just simply reading about it or intellectualizing, which is totally part of my practice as well. I love reading the texts and more spiritual teachings, but it's me nourishing the seeds in my mind by doing those active steps.
Yeah, exactly. Because reading the scriptures and so on, it's a very important thing, because they give us the guidelines, of what to do and how to do, and give us kind of like a little bit of light in the path. Why to do it ourselves when we have masters and we have great teachers who did that before us. and we can learn from them. But in the end, we have to take this, the philosophy, we have to take the knowledge of the scripture, the wisdom, and start to practice it on an everyday level so we can really embody it and start living it, so we have to start on the mat in order to really be able over time to take all this wisdom and apply it off the mat.
Absolutely.
And I think this is something very crucial, that makes a difference between the practices that might help us a little bit to a long-term practice, which actually really create change within ourselves and in our lives and so on.
Yeah, it's where the transformation really occurs. So, Pazit and Kobi, what, in your opinion, what do you think is one of the most crucial issues facing the global yoga community today?
Well, first of all, I think help me with the word in English.
Authenticity.
Authenticity, yeah. I think the first thing is authenticity. I think there is a lot of kind of misunderstanding of the teaching or taking it into a very actually non-spiritual place or a place that is very far from the original meaning. So I believe that any tradition needs to evolve in time. And I think yoga has evolved beautifully over the years and expanded and became available to everybody, to anybody. You don't need today, to do much or to have a lot of money to practice yoga. You can do it really anywhere and with any budget. So that is wonderful. But on the other hand, this expansion became that yoga, like Kobi mentioned before, materialism, where we are only kind of like focused on the maybe on the posture, and on the body, only on the outside stuff of yoga. And although I don't think there's something terribly wrong with that, and still I think people who practice like that get a lot of benefits, but I feel that they don't really get the full deep meaning of what yoga is. It stays very superficial and very, very far from the intention of yoga. So I think this is one thing that all of us as yoga teachers need to pay attention, and to make sure that we bring this extra aspect or depth into our classes and not leaving the classes just with, with body instructions or breath instructions without giving the deeper meaning of why we are doing it and what is the higher purpose of it. So I think this is something really for all of us yoga teacher to pay attention to.
I think there is another thing that comes up for me is I heard someone like in the like last year saying something about leadership, and especially now with the pandemic and everything, and how globally we kind of failed the challenge that we had, like because in crisis, what leaders supposed to do is to bring people together, to unite people, rather than to create more segregation and separation. And it seems like in each country, some less and some more, there was a big issue with that. And also globally, we had definitely a lot of segregation and division between people, and leaders actually created that. And I think like as yogis, this is like on our shoulders, like to take this leadership and to bring people together. I think this is the main thing that we can do right now. And it's like it doesn't matter like where what walk of life the person had, like to really accept everyone and to have like a union between people, and to show, to be a role models to other communities and to inspire them to be as such as well.
Mm, yes. You mentioned, Kobi, right there that as yogis, that this is part of our responsibility. Even the word yogi, I was reading yesterday on some Facebook group how people are very against, saying we're yogis because we really aren't, in the truest sense, way back in the Upanishads, and we're not like a rishis or sages, or we're not sacrificing everything that a yogi would have to sacrifice or be on the certain path. I mean, there just seems like there's so much resistance even to the word namaste. I mean, what are your guys' views on those type of hot topics?
I'm a person, you know how we use words. Like, I'm a person who practice yoga. I'm very much inspired to be a yogi. But like you said, to really be a yogi, it's very advanced and requires some kind of a lifestyle, yeah? In a way, or more to be in a state of mind, much more maybe than a lifestyle, to be in a certain state of mind in order to be considered like a real, like, tradition yogi. So I think, we need to, again, it's just to pay attention how we use words. I think also a lot of it come from, from people who are maybe exaggerating their experiences, and then
I want to say, it's like, I think it's really important, like, to keep the standard really high. And it ties into other things that we spoke of already. The standard, like, there is a beautiful teachings in the Buddhist teachings that speaks about the standard, like, that each and every person in certain traditions need to aspire completely to be a Buddha, not to be just a practitioner, or to be even like less than a Buddha, like a bodhisattva or something like that. It's like everyone should aspire completely to be the Buddha, and even to commit to be the Buddha in this lifetime, and to help everyone else in this lifetime, and not to make any kind of compromise on that. And I think it's a really beautiful understanding. But it can obviously it can touch like a matter of pride, where we say, I am something that I'm not really, and being convinced that I'm in a level that I'm not really in. And this is where the mistake is. But if we see really deep in the yogic tradition, if we commit to it, and we have the divinity within ourselves anyway. It's like every individual in this world has the Atman, or the higher self, or the divine self. And it's not that like we can achieve it somehow. It's already there, available for us. And like we mentioned before, we just need to discover it, and to make it apparent, and to operate from it. And this should be a really important aspiration. And this is a really important focus for us as yogis. On one hand, like, to be humble, but on the other hand, to embrace our strength, and to celebrate our virtue. And it's a really important balance.
Oh, you said that so eloquently, Kobi. Thank you. I appreciate that you shining a light on that, on how having this balance and finding how it really aligns and resonates with your aspirations personally. I think that's beautiful. So I would love to ask, since every week I interview a yoga teacher, or two in this case, from a different country around the world, I also like to talk a little bit about the countries that you're from. So have either of you two in Israel been a part of the yoga scene there, and can talk about kind of what yoga is like there in Israel?
Well, yoga is very big in Israel. There's a lot of people. First of all, there's a lot of Israeli who travel to India. It's kind of like something that you do after the army. You go on a big trip to India. So many people go to India and get exposed to yoga there, and then bring it back to Israel. And the yoga scene is very, very big in Israel. So you have a lot of yoga studios. You have yoga from all traditions. People love yoga.
So also, as Jewish people, we are very much attracted to spirituality anyway. It's like very much in our roots, to ask questions, to go on the spiritual path, and to understand the meaning of life. And I think the Jewish people were doing it throughout whole history. And it's really interesting that like everyone in Israel are searching to one extent or another. And many find their home in Judaism, and many others find find it actually in India. It's a very big thing in Israel, like to go and travel to India and to study from the sources of India. A lot of yogis and a lot of Buddhists in Israel. And it's really beautiful to see, actually. For me, by understanding yoga and understanding Buddhism, I was able to understand Judaism much better. And I know many friends that have explored yoga and Buddhism and actually understood Christianity much better. And even some friends that understood Islam much better than by knowing the traditions of India. It's a beautiful way to connect all the past and to bring the past into the present in a beautiful way.
That's amazing. I didn't know that it was had such a thriving scene for yoga in Israel, because I have met in India, and when I was traveling, a lot of people who are from Israel, and they mentioned that is something that kind of a circuit, like a year-long trip, and Rishikesh is definitely on that list. Have either of you guys practiced yoga in Israel, or were you first introduced to yoga there? I know before you took your 10-year trip.
Well, I was practicing yoga in Israel, mainly Kundalini Yoga. There is a very nice scene and community of Kundalini Yoga in Israel. So, yeah, I was practicing yoga, Kundalini Yoga.
For me, actually, I started my yoga journey in the university. It's like because I took some classes on Eastern philosophy, and this is where I first met yoga. So it's more from the academic side, and then Pazit took me to some Kundalini yoga practices, and it was the first encounter with a full-on practice of yoga, and it was a hell
It
of
was a white tantra. A white tantra. I don't know if you're familiar with it in Kundalini Yoga. It's kind of an event where you sit and you do meditation in pairs. Very long meditation. Usually they push you a little bit over your your boundary. They stretch your boundary really well. Very intense. You do it with a lot of people, and this was the first. You chant a lot of mantras as well. It was the first thing that Kobi came to do on a yoga event.
It was really intense and beautiful. I felt at the end of the day as if I ran a marathon or something. I was completely exhausted, but I was so proud of myself for holding on this. And it's created something really beautiful, allowed our relationship. Like I think like that yoga in general, since we started really practicing yoga, it allowed our relationship to be a spiritual relationship, which is like really upgraded our relationship.
Beautiful. I agree that having that kind of spiritual element in a partnership and in a relationship, it only strengthens it. The conversations that you're able to have, how you're able to hold each other accountable or hold up mirrors when the other person needs to see something, a metaphorical mirror. I mean, I think it's really special to connect with someone on that level as well.
Yeah, I think our life is really very upgraded in a way, because both of us doing a lot of self reflection and a lot of inner work, and we really help each other with this. So we really give each other, feedback, and we are very open also for the feedback. And with as a couple, our communication, we feel that thanks to the spiritual path, thanks to all the practices that we do, our communication between us is so open, is so honest, that it really allows our relationship to be a very peaceful one. And it frees a lot of energy to do other things in life, where your relationship is such a place which is spiritual, which is home, which is supportive, and just giving you the ground to go and just be in the world with the safety net, which is it's very nice for us like that. And I think also our students enjoy the fact that we are a couple, because we are very different in our teaching, and we are very different in our approaches. Although we share the spiritual path, and following the same spiritual path. Our way to teach it is very different. So I think the students really enjoy this a bit of Shiva Shakti, we can say, dynamic that we have.
Oh, that's awesome. It made me immediately think of what Kobi said in the beginning of our conversation about discover versus covered. And I think that also when you have that kind of alignment and the path and in the spiritual side, it removes all those covers, all the layers that can create confusion and conflict and chaos in relationships. I think it just helps it be on a more authentic and transparent level.
You know, we're really trying to embody as much as we can and practice as much as we can all the wisdom into our everyday life. So if we talked even here today about compassion and gratefulness and so on, so these practices they come first with your partner. Really, like is the person who is the closest to you. So he is your opportunity for growth. Your partner is your opportunity to grow. So we practice that all the time with a lot of small action during the day of gratefulness, of compassion, of kindness to each other. And I think one of the reasons that really we don't fight with each other because our communication is that if something goes wrong, we straight away talk about it. You know, we straight away share and tell what we need or what we feel, and this is how we don't allow actually things to escalate into fights and so on. And I think this is what the practice allows you. This is exactly what we said, that the practice gives you a space within yourself to really express yourself at your best, in your best way, to the fullest of your potential.
It's going back to Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. It's like the movement. Not it's like if something happens in the relationship, something is bothering you, not to be contracted into this thing and forget the ocean, forget the bigger picture, forget the chitta, the consciousness itself. So then it's like knowing that like all the time. This is also something that is really helping in the relationship. Like I said, it's like not being attached to the whatever like little thing that happened, and then therefore not being identified with like a drama and like acting upon it. Rather being more spacious, like Pazit mentioned.
Amazing. And I know we're coming close to our finish here, so I just have one quick question I would like to ask. How would you describe Israel to someone who had never heard of it?
Amazing country. So first I want to say, Israel is a really great place to travel, and especially if you want a spiritual travel. First of all, because there's a lot of holy places in Israel, and it doesn't matter if you are Jewish or not Jewish. Just going into these places, you feel the energy. So it's a very beautiful country to travel in, and you have the mountains in the north and you have the desert in the south, you have beaches, so it's an amazing country to travel. And I know many people think that it's not safe to travel in Israel, but this is not true. You can travel in Israel, it's safe to travel in Israel, it's a western country. It's easy to travel in Israel as well, like it's really easy with transportation and public facilities and so on. So I want to say that, and yeah, just if somebody come to Israel, they will have tons of opportunity for all kinds. There is places and studios and retreats and everything is happening in Israel. So
And people are very nice. People are very, very nice and very welcoming, warm people, really embracing. I can assure that like people will be really embracing and loving for visitors.
Where can people find you online and in person in Kep, of course, but what kind of offerings do you have online and in person now that things are starting to open up again?
So yeah, first of all, everybody is invited to connect with us online. So of course, we have our website, vagabondtemple.com. And we are offering a private session, life coaching session, where we help people to face their challenges and to connect to their divinity. So we have life coaching sessions. Kobi is doing astrology reading and family constellation sessions that are all can be done online. I'm doing a vision writing workshop online, and of course also the spiritual life coaching. And I teach Reiki online as well. So this is kind of all kinds of opportunities to connect with us online, one-on-one session or group. We are also doing from time to time kind of free classes online. And people are very welcome to join, even if they don't know us from before. And you can connect with us by signing up to our newsletter and or connecting us through social media.
Wonderful. I will make sure to link everything that you mentioned and also your social media channels in our show notes. So wherever you're listening to this podcast, whether it's Spotify or on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts, it'll all be in the show notes below. So make sure you click through and get to know Pazit and Kobi a little better. And yeah, if they have a course that resonates with you, sign up. It's, I'm sure, going to be amazing. And I can personally say through my friend that the one-on-one coaching is changed her life and her perspective and everything. So definitely recommend their services and their offerings. So thank you so much, Pazit and Kobi, for being on the show today. It has been a true joy to be with you.
Thank you, Lily. Thank you very much. We are grateful for you for inviting us to be here. It was wonderful.
Thank you, Lily. You're so kind, and your mission is really beautiful. You're doing a good thing in the world, so keep on with your good work.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Wild Yoga Tribe podcast. My conversation with Pazit and Kobi was so powerful as we took a deep dive into the spiritual understanding of yoga and the world of modern yoga. I hope that our conversation made you want to take a deeper look into the role yoga plays in modern life and in your life. We talked about their yoga retreat center in Kep and about the yoga scene in Israel as well. We also talked about how we, as people, have different forces that take us in different directions and how bringing the different aspects of ourselves into alignment allows us to really connect ourselves with who we truly are. I loved how we talked about sharing the spiritual path with your partner and about how that affects and strengthens your relationships. If you're looking to tune into a podcast episode that is all about the spiritual aspects and elements of the path of yoga, then this is the conversation for you. Thank you so much for being here, dear listener. Be well. Thank you for being on this journey with me. It has been a privilege to be with you. I know that your time is precious, and I am both humbled and honored that you chose to spend your time with me here on the Wild Yoga Tribe podcast. As you are on your own inner journey, remember that you are not alone. There are so many of us on this path to awakening, this path of self-discovery and expansion, and we are right here alongside you. Remember to hit subscribe so that you never miss an episode. And if you feel called, please share this episode with someone that you think could benefit from it. Leaving a review would also be so appreciated. If you're on social media, I am there too at the Wild Yoga Tribe. You can tap into all the amazing resources on my website, thewildyogatribe.com, and you can meditate with me on Insight Timer and get your flow on with me on my YouTube channel, where I've recorded free yoga classes. If you would like to schedule a private yoga or meditation class with me or a coaching session, you can find the link to do so to book in the show notes or on my website. Again, thewildyogatribe.com. Thank you once again, dear listener, for being with me. May your day be light and bright. May you be peaceful and happy and led on the right path, free of suffering and free of sorrow. Be well, dear one. Be well.